Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pocket Coach. Today, we are covering one of my most important experiments, which is the value breakdown structure. So let's get that stopwatch up and started for 5 minutes and see if we can get it done. All right, so in this particular experiment, this has been my number one coaching problem almost since I've ever started doing Agile. People see epic features and stories, and they use it as a work breakdown structure. So it's just big work, littler work. And that is not what those things are for. So I think it's because of Microsoft Project. I think it's because of traditional project management. They're breaking this stuff down into work, but that's not the point. An epic is value, a feature is value, a story is supposed to be value. And so what is happening here? How do we solve this? So I've coined a term, valued breakdown structure, or a VBS, instead of a work breakdown structure, WBS. So if you've ever had any kind of training in Microsoft Project or in traditional project management, you've heard of work breakdown structures, or WBS. So the hypothesis here is if you understand the difference between a VBS and a WBS, suddenly your epics, features, and stories are going to become much more powerful, much better. You'll be able to flow value more quickly than you've ever flowed. If you look at the skill growth criteria, basically what do you have to do? You have refactored your existing backlogs, if you have them, into value delivery items instead of work breakdown items. So we can show you how to do that. Enablers can be used, but it's a last resort. You should find a splitting technique that's based on value instead of based on enablers, which enable future functionality. That's just like taking a big piece of work and chunking it up into smaller work. Okay, so let's take a look. So I created a quick little deck to help understand this. So the value breakdown structure, VBS, not a work breakdown structure. So stories, features, and epics is not the same thing as a WBS, is not the same thing as what you put on a Gantt chart. But because of our muscle memory, that's how we're treating them. We're just saying, oh, okay, that feature's too big to fit in a time box. I'll make two smaller features. Here's the first 10 steps of my feature. Here's the second 10 steps. Now you're back to waterfall. Okay. So what do we mean by fitting in its box? Well, an epic should take it takes multiple quarters. So there's really not a lot of splitting happening there. But features are 1 to 2 months to build. So if you have a feature that takes 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you probably should break that down. But what happens is people break it down like work instead of like value. Stories should be less than a sprint, a few days, right? Again, people just create a small story and another small story, but the first story is not value by itself. It's just an enabler for the next story, and no value is delivered until the second thing is completed. So the whole idea is you have to split on value, not on work breakdown. So how do you do that? This is where Agile gets hard. You have to look at your feature or your story and ask, I get that this feature might take me 5 months. And maybe I can split that up into 3 2-month features, or thereabouts. What would those 3 features be? Well, you can't just look at the work and then say, well, we'll get some work, some more work. You're back to WBS. You have to ask, what smaller value could I give in just 2 months with respect to this feature? The whole thing is 5 months, but there's got to be something smaller that would still be valuable that I could do in 2 months. And then I'll create a second feature and flow more value in. I'll create a third feature and flow more value. So what you get is a continuous flow of value into the hands of your customers and users. So you have to ask the question, how do I deliver value sooner? Not how do I break down the work? So there is this very classic, I'm going to make this a little bigger. There's this very classic diagram here. It's an overwhelming, terrifying thing. But if you haven't noticed, there's really just 3 steps. Number 1 is prepare your story. Number 2 is apply a pattern for splitting. And number 3 is evaluate how that split went. Okay. So in the end, there are 8 splitting patterns depicted here. And so the idea is you can apply these patterns, and each one of these is value splitting. My other big favorite one is to split on acceptance criteria. We have a whole video on story and feature splitting. So go check out that video and you will see how you split your work and value instead of as work. Okay. So how do I deliver some value earlier? That's the question you have to pivot to, not how do I chunk the work up? How do we split up the work? Now, my favorite thing is if you have written really good acceptance criteria, splitting on acceptance criteria almost always results in value delivery. It's pretty wild how effective that is if you have good acceptance criteria. The second favorite, go check out that video and it'll cover these 8 techniques that are buried in this slide. Now, if all else fails, you can do enablers and spikes, but that's your last resort because now you're back to just small work and small work, not value and value. By the way, there are tasks that some agile teams do. Tasks are, in fact, just tasks. They are not value delivery. So there's the one place where you can flow just work is at the task level. So that is the big idea behind value breakdown structures. Move away from splitting up work and move into how do I deliver value earlier. And I'll give you one quick little case study. We had a marketing company, a marketing team who said it would take 9 months. Sorry, I said marketing. We had a mergers and acquisitions team, and they said it would take 9 months to create their merger and for their latest acquisition, merging it in, right? And when I asked, well, can you deliver value any sooner than that? You know, they said it's just not possible. Anything that we could think of would be cost prohibitive. I said, okay, well, then let's not worry about it. We'll just split on work. A couple days later, I walk in the door and they said, we found 3 different ways to split on value that we could deliver value in just 3 months. And I'm like, oh, I thought you had nothing. They're like, no, we didn't like that you just accepted that we couldn't do it. So we've been talking about it nonstop. We found 3 different ways we can actually deliver value in just 3 months, something we've never done before. And none of this agile techniques taught us that. It's the mindset of deliver value sooner that got us to think about it and create value from our mergers in just 3 months. We've never done it before. And they did. So it was pretty cool. So that's what happens when you start thinking, how do I develop value sooner, not how do I break the work up so it fits in my time box? All right. Well, my name is Anthony Crane, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Oop, got to get back to my sharing screen. Oh my goodness, I can't stop my video. There we go. All right, thanks everybody.